Welcome to New Business in Later Life, where we prove that it's never too late to pursue your entrepreneurial dreams. You will meet remarkable individuals who launch successful businesses over 50, sharing their stories, challenges, and enthusiasm. Your host, Ildiko, is a former social housing professional, textile designer, and teacher who described herself as a life artist. She is now a property professional, business network host, and facilitator of the Entrepreneurial Club. Subscribe now to hear these inspiring stories every week.
How I managed to pin Vic Williams down for this interview is a miracle. Apart from being so busy that we had to book an appointment with him weeks and weeks in advance and hope that a recording studio would be available on that particular day, on the day of recording, we had drama after drama. He got clammed wrongly, but it was all going to be sorted during the day, so initially there were no worries. The guy coming to remove the clamp then had a puncture, so some worries. And then his colleague who came to the rescue broke the nut. At this stage, Vic was due in the chair in about 20 minutes, so by now, lots of worries. Fortunately, I was able to think on my feet fairly quickly and called my second interview for the day, who was able to come in early. And finally, with remarkably small delay, Vic was in the chair. Well, you couldn't make up what was following. One of the lights went out some point during the interview. The batteries needed changing in the cameras. For now, all you need to know is that Vic is dyslexic. He has ADHD and he works with similar people who are entrepreneurs and business owners. And that's about how much I remember of the episode, because we just laughed all the way through. I invite you to come and get lost in our tangents and stories of this episode to be entertained by Vic, who is legendary in our network in Devon and beyond. Thank you very much for coming to the show. And without further ado, I'm going to jump straight in and ask you, what is the most recent business you've set up?
Most recent business I've set up is, it's got two components to it.
Okay.
That's Neurodiversity Guide is one business and 12 Network is the other business. So there's two components to the same business. One focuses on neurodiversity and the other one focuses on networking and awards.
Awesome. And how old were you when you set up this double business or twin business?
60.
Awesome.
60, yeah. I set up my first business when I was 13.
13, blimey. So
my first business, and my latest business when I was 60. So
awesome.
Yeah,
so
never too young, never too old.
Would you call yourself a serial entrepreneur?
Serial entrepreneur, yeah. Yeah.
I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, I get bored very quickly. So,
what was the first one you started with?
First business I started was, as I say, when I was 13. In cinemas, you had people that were ushers. So they would show people to their seats.
Yes, I remember. Well,
and in South Africa, what we had was buy your ticket, but you'd get two parts to your ticket. One part was to get into the cinema, and the other part was to give you a soft drink and a popcorn. Young men would bring their girlfriends or their wife or whatever, and they would come into the movie house. They'd go and sit down, and then the guy would go into, and I'm talking back in the 70s, the guy would then go down into the kiosk area and take the other ticket. And I thought, well, if I took the ticket from them and went in and got their soft drink and their popcorn, they'd pay me more tips.
A little tip, yeah.
Yeah. So that started to work very well for me. And where the business
So basically,
came from,
the cinema paid you for the
no,
job?
the patrons, they just tipped us. We didn't get a salary.
Oh, okay.
Back in the 70s, you didn't have to pay salaries. We just got tips. But so we had to innovate and think of better ways of making tips. And so I did that, and then the other guys that were ushers were seeing I was making a lot more money, asked me how, and I said, well, okay, you join my business, and I'll take a portion of your commission or your tips. And so that was the first business I started. Then VHS came in, and so a lot of people stopped going to the cinemas.
Yes.
And one of the other kids that was also an usher, his dad was very rich, and he had convinced his dad that he wanted to buy my business from me. So I sold my first business 6 months after starting it.
Blimey. I thought you were going to tell me the story that your friend got his dad to buy 2 VHS players and then do the pirate copies.
No, they didn't pick up on that yet.
So what other businesses did you go into?
Yeah, then after I left the military, the first business I started after leaving the military was an automotive workshop. So I'm a motor mechanic by trade.
Right, okay.
So I fixed motor cars.
Is that what you did in the forces as well?
I started out as a motor mechanic and then moved on to different things from there. That grew well. I sold that. Then I got into selling nuts and bolts and screws and washers, sort of automotive consumables.
Yes.
I've had a business that sold uniforms for different companies, overalls and corporate wear.
So through this, were you like a salesman yourself, or you had the shop and you had salesmen working for you?
No, mainly those were small businesses, home-based businesses that I ran myself. I grew maybe 2 or 3 other salespeople who also worked from home.
Yeah,
and back
at the time, we didn't really have computers, did we?
Well, no, you didn't. You didn't have computers. But I mean, I'm talking the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
You didn't really have computers. Everything was on paper. Everything was telephone.
Yeah, or like catalog shops.
Yeah. So one of the guys would get an order from a client, and they'd have to phone it in. So they'd go to a telephone box, put some money in, phone into the office, phone the order through. It all worked.
It's kind of reminiscing here a little bit, but fortunately, I think our listeners will be of similar age. The young ones will be wondering, like, what are these two on about?
They would never understand what it's like to stand in a telephone box,
and twisted.
holding a telephone to your ear that 30 other people have just used, and it's all sweaty, and and you got to try and dial, and it's so. That progressed. I mean, I got into the financial services industry in the early 2000s and built that to a substantial size company, which I eventually sold.
So by then you were into your 40s?
Yeah, I was into my 40s by then, yeah. I built that into a substantial size company. Well, late 30s, into my 40s. Built that into a substantial company, which I then sold off to various people. And then came here to the UK in 2011. Started my first business here in recruitment, which I absolutely hated. Never done before, but I did recruitment, mainly headhunting in the legal space.
Was it for a specific industry?
Yeah, it was mainly for the legal environment, which I knew absolutely nothing about.
So why did you go into that field?
Well, it happened on a train journey. I was going up to London for an interview. Happened to sit next to a lawyer who had come down to the southwest to try and recruit lawyers from here to take back to his firm in London. Couldn't get really anything done. By the time I got to London, I told him to give me the spec for the jobs, met his managing partner, and they commissioned me to go and find 7 people.
So you literally just took an opportunity that presented itself.
It was an opportunity that opened, yeah. And it's actually where I learned and discovered what LinkedIn was all about.
Okay.
Because I was sitting on the train coming back from London. I had to find, they'd asked me to find 3 people, which eventually over time became 7, and then eventually 9 people that I found. But I was sitting on the train coming back from London, and I was trying to think to myself, okay, now I don't know anything about recruitment. Headhunting is even worse. I know less about that. And in the legal space, which I obviously know nothing about, how am I going to find this all out? How am I going to work this all out?
I know that, in the business studies, I'm being told again and again that, just say yes, just get on with it and you'll figure it out later.
Yeah.
But
well,
that's
my attitude to anything. Say yes first and work it out. I'm dyslexic and have ADHD, and that's how my brain works.
Just now, at the age of 50, trying to embrace this, and the whole podcast kind of came up kind of like that, but it feels like it found me. And
Absolutely.
This is, I think, really the first time that I've properly taken an opportunity that presented itself to me.
There's so much excitement because you're trying to learn something new. You're trying to create something out of nothing. You've got to fly by the seat of your pants. And that is just so exciting, especially for
and sitting there with someone like you.
and the exciting thing about it is you're either going to win or you're going to lose. You're not going to fail because I don't believe in failure. You either win or lose. If you lose, you learn a lesson. If you win, you learn a lesson. So both options are learning, and you grow.
Absolutely.
And you develop.
You can only learn from things.
Yeah, if you lose, you fall down and you get back up again, and you keep going. That's my attitude to the whole thing. So,
so how long were you recruiting for then?
I did that for 7 months, and in that space, I headhunted and recruited 9 different people.
And by then you realized this.
Then I just thought, no, thank you, not doing this anymore. But what that led to was I was having a conversation with the managing partner of the law firm that had commissioned me. I think that's the right word, by the way. I don't know. But they'd asked me to do this recruiting
It
stuff.
makes sense so far. Carry on.
Yeah, we go with the word commission. I'm okay with that. And I was sitting having a conversation with him, and he started talking to me about leadership and sales and management courses. And he said to me, so do you know anybody who can do that? I went, yeah, of course I do. And he said, oh, who? I said, me. And so that's where I started.
And what's the bet? At the time, you had absolutely no idea about leadership.
Well, I did have an idea because
you built your business.
I built my business, and I'd done all my own training in South Africa for my staff. And so I had that kind of idea, but I didn't know how it was going to translate into the UK.
Okay,
and I also didn't know how it was going to translate into the legal space. And so, again, fly by the seat of your pants, take the opportunity. And that started my next business, which was a training company.
Okay.
And that evolved into not just training in the legal space, but training in the accounting space, the automotive space, the aerospace environment. Through that business, I traveled literally all over the world, 38 countries.
This was leadership training you were providing.
Leadership training, management training, and sales training.
That can literally fit into any industry.
Yeah, absolutely. You just got to adapt it for the nuances of each industry. Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, from 2013 till 2019, I did training in 38 countries.
Wow.
And it's just taking the opportunity, as it developed, you take it. And then
you're very inspiring. Absolutely.
Well, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it bites you in the rear end, and that's okay. You just learn the lesson and move on.
I believe that period also bore a few books.
I published 3 books in that period, but I've written a total of now, I think, 18. I think there's 18.
Oh, my word.
I will be publishing them over the next while. You and I did have a conversation the one day about
we did a little bit while ago,
a particular idea I have. I was going to start it, but I've put that on the back burner because something else came up, something more exciting. And so, I'm running with that at the moment. The books, they will develop over the next sort of 6 to 8 months. But my first book that I wrote, I wouldn't say it's a very good book. I'd say it's good. The content is good, but I've sold over 20,000 copies of it.
Well, there you go.
So
it must be, so the content must be appreciated, even if you feel that the writing itself may not be to the standard that you later achieved.
Well, so being dyslexic, I didn't, I could have written better.
Even when you are dyslexic, if you put out good content, then don't you just have proofreaders who put that bit right?
Yeah, you do normally have proofreaders. You normally have editors and that sort of thing.
Yes. So I would imagine that bridge would be crossed by other people, and then the final output will not show that you are dyslexic.
Unfortunately, I did not choose the very best editor. They were a copywriter as well. The changes that they wanted to make were not as significant as they could have been.
Okay.
And so the book could have been better. I'm busy rewriting it at the moment, but I'm rewriting it from the perspective of what does leadership look like, because it's a book about leadership, but what does leadership look like for somebody who's dyslexic and ADHD? From the perspective that we see things, because we see things differently. If you had to speak to Richard Branson, for example, and you had to ask him, how does he present him with a problem? So present him with a problem and present the same problem to a CEO who's not dyslexic.
Yeah, they will interpret it completely differently.
Completely different, because as somebody who's dyslexic, somebody who's ADHD, we don't see a box. Most people fit into a box and they see things in a particular way. We look outside of that.
Yes. Well, it's just a completely different angle.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, I went to Plymouth College of Art about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And a lot of artists, designers do suffer with dyslexia and dyscalculia. So there's a lot of support, which is now the Art University of Plymouth.
Yeah.
I think their new name. One of my immediate course mates was dating a lad from another course.
Okay.
And he was I think he was in a graphic designer or an illustrator, one of the two.
Yeah.
And he put together a leaflet or like a magazine or something. And it was, for me, barely readable. But the letters were also different shapes and sizes. And it was, once you figured it out, it was readable. And he said, that's how I see the world.
Yeah. Absolutely.
it's all over the place kind of thing.
Yeah.
So when you present just normal printed text to him, that's kind of like that all over the thing for me.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting
Yeah,
conversation.
it's kind of so. I always say to people, if you think of somebody that's got ADHD, for example, and think of 1,000 screens in a cinema, okay, 1,000 screens, each one playing a different movie. Okay, the person is trying to decide which movie they want to watch, and the minute they decide that that's the movie they're going to watch, everything changes. That's what it's like in a dyslexic's brain. It's that fast moving. It's millions and millions and millions of thoughts a second more than people that don't have ADHD, for example. So it's not, and now we're moving a little bit onto ADHD, but we'll get back to what we're going to talk about in a minute.
The next question is on the tip of my tongue. So
Okay, so if you think of ADHD in that kind of context, you can see why we see the world differently. Because there's so many thoughts that we are trying to process. We have a different kaleidoscope to look at when we look at something. So it's all over the place. It's all random. It's all different. And it moves so fast. And it changes all the time.
It's really interesting that you've been very business-minded. You built a business, sold it, built a business, sold it, and so on.
Built a business, failed, lost a lot of money. Yeah, so I've been there.
There are a lot of people. I mean, I'm sure there are statistical information how many serial entrepreneurs have got ADHD or autism or dyslexia or anything else. But do you find that dyslexia or I don't know if you want to sort of answer it separately for the two conditions, ADHD, have they been a hindrance to business life or you've always just embraced it?
If you take a step back from the question itself and understand that dyslexia is a brain development difference. Okay. So everybody's brain was kind of established the way it is about 40,000 years ago. No brain was designed to read, write, or spell. Okay. No brain.
Okay.
So your brain has to co-opt parts of itself that were designed for other things in order to be able to read, write, or spell. Letters as symbols. Our brains were developed to recognize symbols.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we've got to do as everybody, if you're reading, your brain has to interpret that symbol and match it with a symbol to be able to identify it. And so those three regions that the brain co-opts in order to read, write, and spell have evolved differently for people with dyslexia.
Okay.
And so that whole decoding process takes a lot longer.
Okay.
And it's an evolutionary difference. That's dyslexia. ADHD, on the other hand, is the way in which the wiring in the brain connects and sends signals. In your brain is about 80 billion neurons. They make about 110 trillion connections with each other in different ways all the time. Okay. And so it's an electrical field inside your head. Okay. And so somebody with ADHD, that electrical field works differently. It communicates differently. Neurotransmitters, which carry signals, operate in a different way.
Okay.
So it's a brain difference. So the two are evolutionary differences for evolutionary reasons. If you think 40,000 years ago, we didn't live in cities.
No.
We didn't drive cars. There were no airplanes. Our brains never evolved to deal with those things.
Yeah, things are changing so fast now.
Absolutely. So we've had to co-opt different parts of our brain to be able to understand those things. One is a brain development difference for evolutionary purposes. The other one is a brain connectivity difference for evolutionary purposes.
Going back to the question,
do
these hinder you or propel you?
Yes and no.
In business?
Yes and no. So they hinder in the sense of there's certain things that I know I'm rubbish at. I'm absolutely rubbish at. For example, don't give me detail. I am not interested. I'm not good at it. I'm rubbish at it. And because of it, I probably I spell a lot of people's names wrong because I don't think of the detail. I think the big picture. And that's a thing for most people with dyslexia as well as ADHD.
Yeah.
We look at the big picture and forget about the minutiae in between. Another way in which it hinders me in business is that somebody will say to me, Vic, this task, Can you do that? Yes. How long is it going to take you? 2 days. Because I over anticipate the speed at which I can do things.
Which is actually very good, because I'm the opposite. I think, I can do it in 2 hours, and it takes me 4 or 6 or 2 days.
Well, if I say it takes me 2 days.
I have a bit of intention when I say 2 hours.
Yeah. Well, I have, if I say 2 days, I probably actually know that's going to take me 10. So I'm over anticipating my ability and the speed at which I can do things, forgetting about the detail to make that thing work. So it's a hindrance in that way. However, it's a huge advantage in the sense of I come up with things and solutions to problems that people have never thought of. So I'll give you an example. I was working with a client in a big cement company in Oman, Raysat Cement. And they had a particular issue with finance. They just couldn't get the financing of a particular program to work. And I was there doing a completely different project.
Okay.
And I was sitting talking with the CEO. We were having a meal. And he said to me, he was telling me about this problem. And I said to him, well, why don't you just do that? And he was stunned. Obviously, I can't give you the detail of it, but
no.
I said, just do that. And he looked at me as if to say, have you completely lost your mind?
It's so simple.
So simple. And the solution was that. That's where it's an advantage.
Recently, I was listening to something that said that it's really good to bring in people from outside your area, because they'll think completely differently and will see problems from a completely different angle and light, and can, just like your story, can bring a really simple solution to something that you can't see. It's like the can't see the wood for the trees kind of situation, isn't it?
But they'll also ask questions that you probably wouldn't ask. If you bring in somebody from outside, they don't see the box that you see.
Yes.
So if you're in property, for example, okay,
which I am,
which you are, yes,
which I am, yes,
you will have a particular way in which you see things.
Yes.
Okay, that's how it works. Bring in somebody from outside that knows nothing about property. They're going to ask you questions that are outside of that.
Yeah, because they see it completely differently.
Because they see it differently. Now, I've got a very good friend in America who talks about seeing things on the periphery. Right on the outer edge. And that's what people with ADHD do. We see things right on the outer edge, and those things on the outer edge are typically the answer to the problem that you have.
Yeah.
Because they're not constrained by this box. It's a hindrance, but it's also a huge advantage. And it depends on your perspective on the thing as to whether you see it as a hindrance or an advantage. For me, I know there's things that I'm rubbish at.
You just accept them,
Yeah, just accept them and move on. So I'll give you a perfect example.
You choose to be a half glass full guy.
Oh, no, I'm overflowing. I'm overflowing. I can't do this half full. I'm either in or I'm out. Finished. And most of the time I'll say, yeah, I'm in, and then I figure out I can't do it. But it's life. But an example, we're running an awards program right now.
Yes.
Okay. Unfortunately, because I don't focus on the detail, I've spelt a couple of people's names wrong.
But there should be people around you who know how to spell that.
Well, it's offended some people, and I have to apologize. And that's one of the things that you learn to do. You make mistakes, you apologize, and you move on.
So let's try and get to your current business. So what is your current business? I think we got up to about 2019 or something.
Well, obviously 2020, the disaster of COVID happened. And that killed off my training business. Literally killed it off, because the most of my
Did it not go?
The majority of my work was in the Far East and in the Middle East.
Oh my goodness! So they were like,
all those places closed down.
Say that, theoretically, you could have carried on online, because a lot of things went online at the time.
Yeah, theoretically
somehow yours
you could have, but most of my clients wanted face to face.
Oh, okay.
And so that whole business dropped. But what was really interesting was the thought processes that developed. Okay, so why don't I take all this knowledge and transfer it into my community, into my tribe?
Yeah.
My tribe, those people who are dyslexic and ADHD. My tribe, those people who are dyslexic and ADHD and are in business.
Yeah, and I imagine there are plenty of people, just like you, who've got a fire in their belly.
Absolutely, and that's where it started. And so Neurodiversity Guide started as this idea of, how can I teach people who are dyslexic and or ADHD, what is going on inside their head, how their brain works, how that all affects what they do, and then what they can do, what are the strategies they can take to put in place to make sure that those negatives are mitigated and the positives are highlighted. So that's
Pretty
what the
much,
business
exactly.
is all about.
This is still a leadership training course, or
no,
is it anyone,
goes-
like any business owner?
Any business
So
owner,
it could be a sole trader, or small or medium size, any
size business. One of my biggest clients is in London in the financial services industry. They got over 900 staff. And I work with their leadership team. It's all sorts of different things.
Does it make a difference to you whether it's a sole trader or a big company?
No, it just depends on the only difference it makes is understanding their environment.
Okay.
So, for example, with the company that I'm working with in London, they are a financial service company. They've got a senior leadership team. On that senior leadership team, there are 39 people. 12 are dyslexic, and
goodness.
7 are ADHD.
Do they?
Okay?
Is it in their job description?
It should probably be. But what we've done is I've worked with them.
How interesting that they attract such a high
Oh,
percentage
yeah.
of people with these particular
Conditions.
issues,
Absolutely.
conditions. Yeah.
And there's various reasons why they attract those sort of people. But what we've done is we've now helped those people in that leadership team who are not, or who are what we call neurotypical, to understand
Yes.
what those neurodiverse
I
people...
think that's the hardest bit, isn't it?
Absolutely. So the first part is education.
Yes.
So we educate them all to understand each other. The second thing we do is we motivate them. We motivate them to say, you can use this person differently. Why
Yes.
is this person in that role? Why not in that role? And then allow them to grow. So there's the whole motivation piece. And then the third part, which is, these are the three parts that my business is built on, is empower people.
Yes.
We empower people to say, you may be neurodiverse, but if you change this, if you look at it that way, if you adapt this, boom, you just elevate. You just explode. You just now empowered to be different, to do different, to think in a different space. So that's what we do.
That's
we
pretty
grow
amazing.
people. We do those three things. We educate, we motivate, and we empower. That's what the neurodiversity guide part to the business does. And then on the other side, networking, growing the network, getting to networking events.
Yeah. So do you into your own networking event? Do you
Yes.
attract people with ADHD and dyslexia?
No, it's not focused on that. It's focused on networking, but it does tend to attract
Is it for business people?
for anybody that wants to get involved in the local community and
okay.
have an impact. So what 12 is all about is having an impact on your local environment. So we have networking events in Exeter and Plymouth and Torquay and Taunton and Cornwall. It's just about getting to know people who are local to you,
Yes.
who you may be able to do business with, may not be able to do business. That doesn't matter. It's all about getting to know them and getting to understand the impact they have and how you can help them make a bigger impact.
How come I haven't heard about the one in Plymouth?
Because it's on, it's on hold at the moment because we're looking for a new venue. But that will come live probably January, February.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because, I love networking. And as you know very
Absolutely.
well, I love it so much. I actually started off my own networking event.
Correct.
Because there was a
Yes.
really lively one in Exeter.
Yeah.
And it combines property and business. So I'm a
Absolutely.
property professional and I was going to all sorts of property networking events.
Yeah.
And I found it very hard to identify a good business one. And
Yeah.
that was really lively. So I decided we need one of these in Plymouth.
Absolutely. And it's a good event.
So I did it. Yes,
Yeah,
it
it's a
is
good
absolutely
event.
fantastic.
Yeah,
So I'm super pleased to have been involved with that and to be sort of a lead person running that event.
Absolutely.
So I totally share your sentiment on running a networking event because it is absolutely beautiful, encouraging, lifting to bring people together.
Absolutely.
To get to know them. To connect them.
Yeah.
When someone comes in and say, oh, this is my first time networking, I don't know what to do. And then I sort of give them a bit of advice.
Yeah.
And then what do you do? So, make sure that you speak to that person or that person. And it is just wonderful.
It gives you such a sense of accomplishment. You know, you walk away after the event and you think, well, that person spoke to that one.
Yeah.
That one connected with that one. They made new friends. Those relationships, and it's just
And they come back to you at the end of the event
Absolutely.
and say thanks and thank you for suggesting.
Yes.
Yeah, that is
man, that's just like, right in the heart, man. It's just like wonderful. Yeah, so that's kind of what we do, I'm also a public speaker. I've developed a number of talks that I do through that part of the business called 12. So it's called 12 Talks, and we go from there, yeah.
I imagine you cover similar topics like the leadership and how to deal with dyslexia and ADHD.
Correct, yeah.
So people can invite you to their events to do
absolutely,
a keynote?
Yeah. I mean, I speak at probably 3 events a month I'm speaking at the moment. And they range in size from small events of 20, 25 people to the biggest one I've done so far this year was 700, I think it was.
That's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah, I absolutely love it.
I love
it. Yeah,
put me in front of 1,000 people and I'm fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Put me in front of 2 people and I'd die.
I was probably more nervous before these interviews than I would be getting on a stage in front of 1,000 people.
Yeah,
I would imagine.
Yeah. But that's where your passion is, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're passionate about doing that thing. You're excited about doing it. You do it,
When do you feel most alive and energized in your business life?
There's a number of different things. So I really, really love public speaking. I love it. It's not something that came naturally to me.
Okay.
Because although I speak a lot and I'm out with a lot of people all the time and I'm at networking events and I'm a public speaker and that sort of thing, it never came naturally to me because I'm naturally an introvert. I naturally like to spend time on my own, being with me. Okay.
Is it like because you like sharing that knowledge and information?
I started out getting into public speaking because somebody said to me it's something you'll never be able to do. And one of the things that people must just not do, because then don't tell me I can't do it, because then I'll go and do it.
You're one of those.
I want to prove that I can do it. Okay. So that's how I started out. And then I realized standing in front of people gave me a buzz, made me feel good, made me feel good about me, made me feel good about them. And it created a connection. I started to learn the skill of public speaking. And that's where it developed. And so it's grown from there over the years. And now I feel comfortable public speaking rather than I don't feel at home as a public speaker. I don't like calling myself a public speaker, but that's what it is.
Where do you see your business, any of these current businesses growing?
So I want to develop the business over the next 2 years to be primarily, and when I say primarily, probably 85% of my business involved as a public speaker. That's where I want to generate my revenue from, because that's where I get the biggest buzz, the biggest excitement, the biggest joy from, is seeing the message that I convey changing people's lives.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It's just the most wonderful experience when people come to you afterwards, or they message you afterwards, or they send you an email afterwards that says that thing that you said, those 3 points you made, those things that story that you told that relates to me, it's changed my life. Man, I'm just like, I'm all over that stuff. That's what empowers me, what drives me. So that's where I see the growth coming. That's where I see the growth coming for my business. To answer your question, where do I get the biggest buzz from? There, but also sitting one-to-one with somebody.
Okay.
Having a conversation like this, or sitting with a coaching client. Oh my word! That
must be really, really
so rewarding.
Rewarding, yeah, that was the word I was looking for.
So rewarding, especially when you see the person that you're working with open up like almost like a flower.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever seen wildflowers.
When they open up in the sunshine and then they close up.
When they closed as the sort of the dew all over it, and then as the sun rises, they slowly open up.
Right now I have lilies at home, and lilies, this tiny little bud, and then overnight they just opened up. It's like, here I am.
Yeah, it's like, hello world, I'm here.
But I know what you mean. It's like not too long ago in the summer I had mentoring, and I was on the receiving end of the enthusiasm of my mentors, and week on week is that eureka moment every week with the advice they were giving, like, of course I can do that. And then it made me think and made me write things down and look into other people's lives and whatever else came up as a task. And just in a short sort of 6 to 8 weeks, the way my mindset shifted with that little bit of mentoring.
Absolutely.
So I know what you mean from the receiving
I mean,
end.
you can't. Yes, obviously, people pay you for as a coach or pay you for mentoring or that sort of thing. Yes, people pay you, and you can make a good living out of it, and that's great. I've got no problem with that. But that feeling
to actually do what you absolutely love and gives you the biggest buzz.
Oh, absolutely.
So there'll be 2 parts to the question. So what are your hardest part in actually running this as a business? To it's lovely to go and travel and deliver these keynote speeches and sit down with clients and all that. But what's the hardest part of running a business, especially with dyslexia and ADHD?
Yeah.
The absolute advantages and the easiest parts.
Okay.
So let's start with the hard lot.
I think for me, the hardest part of running a business, whether it's a startup or a business that's growing and developing. For me, the hardest parts are those things that I really don't like doing, which are accounting.
I was saying accounting, the first one.
I mean, I've got a master's degree in economics. So the numbers aren't the problem. It's just boring.
But you don't have to. The beauty of having a bookkeeper and accountant is that you really don't have to.
You can outsource it. And that's one of the keys. I don't like doing the books. I don't like following the numbers. I like knowing what the numbers are, but I don't like following them all the time and making sure it just bores the heck out of me. Marketing for me is one of the biggest challenges I face.
Well, you did a few sales jobs, and that's all about marketing, isn't it?
Well, sales and marketing for me are very different.
Okay.
Marketing is about telling people, and sales is about getting them to the place where they go, yeah, okay, I want that thing. So marketing is telling people what you've got, what it does, how it does it, and that's it.
I don't know, maybe in my head it's always like sales and marketing.
Yeah,
and even when you go into the shop that you want to buy a telly, there's still 15 tellies on the wall, and that poor salesman will need to talk to you about all of it. So that part is marketing, and then which part is the sales? It's
you see, I see it differently. The marketing is if you go in, you're going to buy a telly. The marketing for me is the brand of the company, the advertising that they do, that all the stuff that they do that gets you into the shop
through the door. And then
come through the door. From there on, it's about sales. It's about the first person you meet. How do they speak with you? It's about meeting the salesperson. How do they talk you through the different options? Whether they allow you to make the decision or do they push you to the decision. All of that's about sales.
Right, okay.
And so sales I've got no problem with. What I've got a major issue with is the way in which I communicate what my product is, what my service is. I'm not very good at all with advertising or
But again,
PR.
you can bring in marketing and PR.
Absolutely.
Do you?
Absolutely. Now, this is where the advantages are, because I believe in this as a person with dyslexia and ADHD. I believe you build your strengths and you outsource your weaknesses.
Yeah.
Okay. A lot of people will say, okay, don't focus on your strengths because those strengths already, focus on your weakness and try to build them. No. Outsource them. Give them to somebody else and focus on your strengths. Those things that you're good at. I've become very good at speaking. So I speak.
So run with that, yes.
I run with that. I've become very good at helping people to understand what dyslexia is, what ADHD is. So I go with that. Telling people I can do that I outsource. That goes to marketing. That's the people that are good at that stuff.
Yes.
So I give that to them. And that's what I always encourage people to do. If you're starting up a business in later life, now I've done marketing, I've done sales, I've done accounting, I've done economics. Okay, so I understand all those things. But if you're starting a business in later life, your time frame is a lot shorter.
Yes, it is.
So outsource more than you actually do. The more you outsource...
It's a really important message, isn't it?
Absolutely. The more you outsource, the more you can focus on those things that you're really good at. And you give yourself more time to breathe, which is really important. Sit down, relax, enjoy the experience. What a lot of people do, they're starting a business, whether young or old, they run at it at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
And burn out.
And burn out, because they think that's what they got to do. You don't have to.
No.
A very, very good Jim Rohn
Yeah, I've listened to quite a number of his books. Yeah,
absolutely brilliant. One of the things that he said that's always stuck with me is, on the journey to where you're going, don't forget to smell the roses. Because we're running so far to that place. Who knows if we're going to get there ever.
Everybody preaches,
Just
enjoy
smell
the journey.
roses. Enjoy the journey. So I get up. First thing I do is make a cup of coffee. Then I go and sit in my office and I meditate. Now, for me, meditating isn't sitting cross-legged on the floor humming.
No, not at all.
Okay. It's just about thinking through my day. What am I doing? How am I doing it?
So not an actual meditation practice, but
no, it's not a meditation practice. Yeah, for me, I mean, I've done a lot of meditation, different types of meditation, and that meditation on my day is not a going through a ritual. It's more about sitting, thinking through what I'm going to do, what I want to do, what I want to achieve, and meditating on those things. Because at the end of the day, that's what the word meditation means. Concentrating those things that you want to do.
Yes.
Considering your environment, thinking about it. That's what meditation is. And so I spend that time thinking through what I want to do, thinking through the relationships I want to build, thinking through the people I'm going to meet that day. How do I want to communicate with them? What impact do I want to have on them? How do I want to see change in them? So I think about my coaching clients and I try to think through what the outcome is that I want. So I meditate for about a half an hour on those sort of things. Right. Then I've got a very specific meditation practice to relax, to calm down, to just ground myself. Okay, just about 10 minutes.
Do you still do it at home? Or
in my office.
In the summer, somebody told me I should ground more, and the only way I could get around it was to take my meditation practice of the morning outside.
Excellent idea.
As long as it's not pouring in rain.
Correct.
In which case I actually just opened the patio door completely wide.
Yeah.
But that's been revolutionary, sitting outside in fresh air. So now that it's getting colder, I wrap myself up in my, take my blanket with me. But
but if you take your shoes off, your feet are actually touching the ground.
That's the bit I couldn't cope with because I don't do cold. So that doesn't work for me. But just simply sitting outside and breathing in fresh air every single morning has been revolutionary. It's absolutely beautiful.
The reason why I don't do it outside is because where I live, it's not convenient because of the neighbors and all that sort of stuff. So I just do my meditation practice in my office. So I'll have my coffee, I'll do my sort of thinking through the day, and then I'll do my meditation practice, and then I'll read.
Yes.
And I'll read maybe a Jim Rohn book or a Zig Ziglar book, or any of those sort of motivational, empowering, uplifting sort of things. But I don't sit and read for hours. I read until I've taken in one point, one thing. So it might be half a page, it might be 2 pages, it might be a chapter, but it's just something that my brain will pick up and go, yes, that thing. And then I stop, because now I want to remember that thing.
Yes.
Because that's my growth point for the day. I want to build that thing into my character. I want to grow that thing in my life practice. Okay. So I'll go through that, and then once I've done that reading, then I'll journal. And my journaling takes 2 forms. First form is just a brain dump. Everything that's in my head, I just write it down. It's like somebody the other day said, it's like vomiting on a page. Just put it out there. Nobody sees it, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the second part of my journaling is where I now write out the things that I want. What do I want to do today? How am I feeling? Why am I feeling that way? What impacted me from yesterday that I want to change today? All those sort of things, I then write those down. Some days that can be 16 pages. Other days it's half a page.
Oh my word.
It just depends on what's there, what's going through my mind. I'll write about people that I've met and how they've made me feel and the things they've done, how's it impacted me, so that I can learn the lessons to change. And then I'll take my dog for a walk. And taking my dog for a walk as just a time out with the dog, relax my mind.
I miss that.
So that's my kind of morning routine.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Somebody the other day said to me, "Oh, you should go cold water plunging." I said, where must I fit it in the morning? It's not going to happen.
I do cold shower.
Oh,
so
no.
yeah, my morning routine is kind of similar.
Yeah.
Make a green tea, let it brew, go and do my exercise, cold shower, meditation, have the green tea, and then listen to like a clever bit of advice, like business advice every morning.
Good.
You probably heard Darren Hardy.
Yeah.
So I listen to his Darren Daily little snippets. And when I have time, I do sit down and read a little bit, but I tend to get on with work.
Okay.
But then, if possible, I go out for an after lunch walk and listen to audiobooks.
Love it. Yeah.
It's amazing. The cold shower is just life-changing.
Yeah, no, this body wasn't built for cold water at all. I'm from Africa. We do heat. So
I'm Hungarian. You know, I mean, people think, "Oh, that's a cold country." I said, "In what part of the universe do you think it's a cold country?" I mean, even when I was a youngster, because I came over at 21, age 21. Even back then, summers would easily go above 30 degrees. Nowadays, it's reaching 40 degrees. Easily in July and August. So we do get cold, but only for like 2 months out of the 12.
No.
You know what I mean? You can't call it a cold country at all.
Even I don't even go in the sea here. It's too cold.
Where do you find your most unconventional business inspiration?
Because I'm ADHD and I move the whole time, which you've probably noticed already. I can't sit still. So I don't tend to watch movies. The last time I went to a cinema was when I watched Titanic.
And you regretted the day you were born?
Well, yeah, probably.
Because it was like a 3.5 hour film.
Yeah, it literally killed me. But anyway, that was the last time I went to a movie house, a long time ago. If somebody asked me if I went to a movie house nowadays, I can force myself to sit still, but it's not great. But what I like to do is I like to watch a movie at home where I can stop it when I get bored, or I can stop it if I want tea or whatever the case may be. But typically what I'll do is I'll watch a movie to find something that I can apply to my business.
How interesting. Do you have a genre that you like, or it's any movie?
I typically go for the more action-orientated movies.
Okay.
I just don't do the whole love story kind of. It's just not me.
You're not a rom-com kind of girl.
Yeah, no. Well, no, I'm out of here. You lost me at the first word. But typically, I'll try to watch either a movie or a TV series. I'm interested more in finding something that teaches me a lesson about business or life.
Isn't that any American movie? They all have a
they've all got an underlying
moral
message
at the end. Yeah.
If you think of the way movies are made up, they're made up in a 3-part component. You've got the beginning, the middle, and the end. So in the beginning of the movie, I mean, it sounds kind of obvious, but in the beginning of the movie, they always introduce you to the hero and the antagonist.
Yeah.
In the first part of the movie, you get to know them. You get to see their strengths, their weaknesses, their vulnerabilities in that first part. In the middle is always what the problem is. So there's a problem that the antagonist presents, and the hero has to overcome.
Yeah.
Okay. And in the last part of the movie is the hero overcomes the problem. They may die in the process, or they may be the hero, but they overcome that problem.
Yeah.
They win. Yeah. So I think that's where I get my biggest inspiration from. The other place I get a huge inspiration from is watching people. So I'll go to a coffee shop, for example, and I'll sit in a coffee shop and I'll just watch people. What do they do? And I'll try to figure out why they've done it that way. Why are they sitting in a particular way? What is the implications of that? And then something in my brain will go, oh, hang on. If they knew how to do X, Y, Z, or if they thought like this, they would probably do things differently. And then I'll go into researching that. Generally, it goes down a rabbit hole that means nothing. But every now and again, I'll just pick up a little nugget and go, yes. And that'll develop into something. So, yeah, those are the places I get my inspiration from.
Interesting. Yeah. So have you had a huge career failure at any point with all these businesses?
Oh, yes.
What was it?
So I started a business in South Africa in the automotive space, but focused on repairing huge earth-moving equipment.
Okay.
And that was separate from my automotive workshop, which was doing really, really well. And I set up this other side to repair and service earth-moving equipment for a particular client. I underestimated the cost of doing that, and I poured a load of money into it. It got off the ground, and then didn't go much further than off the ground.
And then died a short death by the sound of it.
Yeah, well, it died a very long, slow, because I tried to, it should have died probably.
Were you sort of throwing good money after bed?
Yeah, no, it was just
get it going.
Yeah,
but
it was a good lesson.
Have you been able to weaponize that learning to now fuel your current business?
Oh yes, yeah, absolutely. And for me, everything you learn in the past has to be a lesson that you apply in the future. The major lesson that I learned from that is to be more understanding of what I call the inset cost is.
Yes.
So if you think of it in terms of farming, you've got to plow the ground, you've got to lay the seed, and you've got to, once the seed is laid, then you've got a whole sort of nurturing period.
Yes.
Where all the seed has to be nurtured. And you only can harvest at a certain stage. Yeah. You can't harvest before that. All of that is what we call the inset cost, or what I call the inset cost. I've learned that I've got to be more understanding and appreciative of that inset cost.
That it's not just the ploughing and the planting.
Correct.
There's like loads more other stuff.
There's all the stuff in between. Yeah, absolutely. Those little things. Those were the costs that killed me.
Do you find that people trust you more or less for your age?
There's two sides to that. A lot of people inherently believe what you say because of your age. They think you've got experience, you must be right. Okay. There's a lot of other people that will challenge that, will challenge you. Why do you say that? So you've said X, Y, Z. Why have you said that? Justify it. Most people of my age have 1 year's experience, which they've repeated 40 years. Every year for 40 years, the same thing. And so people go, oh, you're 61. You must have lots of experience. Therefore, I must trust you. I can't trust you.
It kind of depends. But obviously, like in your case, you've done so many businesses. You're expert, and you've worked in so many countries.
Yeah.
You have actually physically got a wealth of experience.
That's a different
while
story.
While other people,
altogether.
if somebody worked in the same place for 30 years, they might have climbed the corporate ladder and stuff, but it's still kind of different because they only experienced one culture.
Correct.
The one company culture.
Yeah.
But funny, it triggered a memory for me. I was like, I don't know, 16, 17 maybe, giving relationship advice to somebody who was actually having an affair with this lady. And I remember the woman looking at me, who are you? You had a child.
Yeah.
But he kind of recognized that just simply looking from the outside, I could kind of recognize the problem.
Absolutely.
Irrelevant that I was only 16 and not had the
so
experience
age,
of relationship.
It's
a young
person's
advice against an older person's advice.
We were taught to respect your elders.
Well,
Those people that are older you, respect them. Respect translated into trust them.
Quite interesting that you are very humble in that. And as you say, you try and encourage people still to think for themselves rather than just trust what you say.
Just suck it up.
Yeah.
The analogy that was once given to me by an amazing lady that I have the most amazing, hugest respect for, Ingrid. She one day said to me, think of it like a chicken, a roast chicken.
Okay.
You don't eat the whole chicken.
Well, some probably would.
Well, you're generally going to throw away the bones.
Oh, the bones. Yeah, true. Okay. Fair enough.
Think of it like that. Think of advice. Think of other people's opinions in that way. It's a chicken. You eat the good stuff. I'm a meat eater. I love chicken. But I do not like the wings. I do not like drumsticks. Those are for other people. I don't like them. So I don't eat them. That's the same as somebody else's opinion.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah.
What I like, I will take. What I think can appropriate, I will take. What I think is good for me, I will take. And the rest, I'll discard. Like a chicken bone.
Or a chicken wing, or a chicken drumstick.
Absolutely. Now, that drumstick and that chicken wing may be somebody else's food.
Yeah, absolutely.
Somebody else might like that. And that's okay. That's okay. So, my opinion, my advice, not all of it's for everybody. Not all of it's good for somebody. Take the meat. Take the parts you like. Take the parts that are good for you. Take the parts that grow you and make you better. Throw the rest away.
Or
Give the rest to somebody else.
Pass it on, indeed. Because potentially somebody could still store that bit of information and then speak to somebody 2 weeks later and say, oh, somebody told me about this. This could potentially suit you.
Yeah. Think about people in this way. If I cut me open and I cut you open, we both bleed the same red stuff. The same red stuff comes out. It's exactly the same. Doesn't matter the color of your skin, the origin of your ancestry. It doesn't matter. It's the same red stuff. That makes us all equal. We start at the same place. So if we start at the same place, how can I see myself as better than you? Or you better than me? We're all equal, all the same. We all die the same. We're all born the same.
Yeah.
So how can I be arrogant about my opinion? My opinion's just an opinion. There's a great word in Zulu, Ubuntu.
Okay.
Ubuntu means I am because you are. I exist because you exist. We are the same.
Yeah, I totally share this whole sentiment. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I studied leathercraft at school, and some years ago I set up a little business to make pet accessories like collars, leads, that kind of stuff. And when I launched the business, people were coming up to me like, wow, and oh, you can do that, and I could never do that. And I would always ask back, what do you do?
Yeah.
And they would say whatever their job was. Like, I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
It's just whatever you know
Absolutely.
is normal to you.
Yeah.
And it, other people can perceive it as something extraordinary. And to you, it really isn't, because that's
not.
what you do.
Yeah. And what they do.
And that's exactly. And even on that level, we are all the same, because we learned something and we are good at something and we are doing that thing.
Yeah.
So just get on with it and be happy and share it
see
and
everybody the same.
support each other.
Yeah. And that's something to think of when you are starting a new business as an older person, is to think of, okay, I'm starting a new business. I may have all these years' experience, but I need to be in a position where I need to have a mindset of not a settler, because a settler says I've got all this experience, but rather of an immigrant. See, an immigrant coming into a country doesn't know the culture.
You know that,
Doesn't,
and I know that. Yeah,
and you
they're
know
both,
that. I know.
yes.
Yeah. So an immigrant coming into a country, they don't know the culture. They don't typically know the environment. They don't know the way things are done.
Need to learn it from scratch.
And they've got to learn from scratch.
Need to fit in.
Need to acclimatize, need to become part of that environment and allow that environment to impact them. So you're older, you're starting a new business, think of your environment. What can you learn? How can you change yourself to be an immigrant, to learn the culture of that industry, to learn what is done and not done, to learn how it's done and how it's not done? Probably my biggest piece of advice to anybody starting a new business, particularly in older life, have an immigrant mentality.
That is beautiful. Yeah. I think we can comfortably close the conversation there. That is just a beautiful rounding of your story. Do you have any regrets for not setting up this business earlier in your life?
Yes, I do. I wish I'd known. So I was diagnosed with dyslexia when I was 48.
Okay.
And with ADHD when I was 53.
Oh, wow. They're very late, both of them.
Very late. I wish I'd been diagnosed earlier and knew then what I know now. I would have started earlier and I probably would have changed more lives. However,
you mean the mentoring? You would have started the mentoring.
Yeah,
and
the focus on
speaking.
dyslexia and ADHD,
Yeah.
I think that's probably my biggest regret in life.
And would you consider setting up another business?
Heck yes. Oh, yes.
Do you have any ideas? What?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, go on, share. Hint.
In the next few months, we'll set up an e-commerce business.
Oh, cool.
Because I want to move my income to be more focused online, but a completely separate e-commerce business from dyslexia and ADHD and all those sort of things. Selling a particular product, which is busy being worked on. So
Okay, so that bit you're not
watch
going to
this
reveal.
space.
Okay, cool. Well, when it comes, we can add it to the show notes. To continue to support our listeners, is there a particular book you would recommend for people to read, obviously in relation to starting up a new business?
The best book I've ever read that inspired me in business was a book by Zig Ziglar called Over the Top.
Okay.
And it's a book written specifically about motivation.
I've heard of Zig Ziglar, but not that book yet.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably the best business book I've ever read without it being a specific business book.
Fantastic.
I think a second book that I would always recommend is something that was written, I think it was originally published in about 1914, and that is a book by Dale Carnegie called How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yes, I've got it in my library.
If you read the original, it is really archaic. It's very difficult to work through. But if
it's so timeless.
Oh, it's absolutely
crazy.
timeless. But it's been rewritten, so in more modern language, without losing the essence and the context.
Okay. Do you have a favorite podcast that you would listen to and would recommend?
I don't particularly have one that I listen to that's related to business itself.
Okay.
My go-to podcast is the Huberman Lab. Andrew Huberman is a biologist and neuroscientist.
Oh, okay.
And he talks a lot about neuroscience and those sort of things. So
it
that's the one
fits into your business, your field.
Yeah,
that's important too. Yeah,
I can't. There's a fantastic podcast. They don't run it anymore, but the chap's name was Paul Avins, Avins, and if I remember correctly, the podcast was called something Grown Up Business.
Okay.
Something like that. But go and check it out. Paul Avins. He's got some good stuff on starting a business, growing a business, all that sort of stuff.
Cool. Would you be able to recommend somebody I could interview who is in a similar situation, who set up a new business in later life?
There's two that I would say speak to. A chap that lives in Sheffield by the name of Lawrence Feinberg. And
what does he do?
He and a chap in Plymouth have just started a business in the financial sector.
Okay.
Helping companies raise offshore funds. He possibly would be a good guy to speak to.
Can I have his details, please?
I will pass on his details to you. Yeah.
In property, of course, property developers always looking for investors.
Tasha Pullen. She's an IFA. She's recently relocated from South Africa to here and started her own business in the financial service sector. She would be very
interesting.
good. Yeah.
Cool. Lovely. Thank you very much. So
Thank you.
wraps up this episode, well and truly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vic, for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for inviting me.
Truly appreciate your time, your insights, and you've made some amazing points. And I think this episode will be very special sort of content for people who are listening, and especially those who are starting out in a new business or have just started.
Yeah.
Lots of good advice.
Thank you very much.
Ever so much.
I appreciate it.
Wonderful.
Appreciate your time.
A heartfelt thanks to Vic for his invaluable insights. I hope Vic's mentoring and networking experiences have inspired you. On New Business in Later Life, we believe that your network and knowledge are key to success at any age. If you've been hesitant about starting up a new business, let Vic's story encourage you to take that leap. Trust in your abilities and the connections that you've built over the years. And for those interested in Vic's mentoring and networking events, please see the show notes for the contact details. Thank you.